Hello, my name is Dino Icota, and for this midterm project, I'll be talking about Ecuador and the ongoing violence, the ongoing gang violence, murders, homicides, and from where it stems from. So, to start off, so Ecuador was actually one, if not one, if not the safest country in Latin America about I think around 2018, like before 2018, and now like now is the we have now Ecuador has the highest homicide rate, highest murder rate, highest gang violence in the entire of Latin America, even surpassing Mexico, who has over 100 million of the population, and Ecuador has around 17 million, if not less. So, and the violence that is happening right now is due to the bad, there's no security. There's the security there is down. The economy there is declining. Is going. It's going down like crazy, and because of the violence and the declining economy that is happening in Ecuador, so many people have started leaving the country. They've been going to other countries which are more developed, for example, the US, Spain, other European countries, to just escape the violence that is happening there. So a little background of why this is happening. So there was an ex-president from Ecuador named Rafael Correa, and when he was president around, I think, 2007, he imposed a democratic socialist doctrine, which in Spanish it is called el socialismo del siglo XXI, or the socialism of the 21st century. And then during his time in government, that doctrine was to focus on the people, so on agriculture, education, food security, the road systems as well. And he also focused on renewable energy, so such as electricity and hydroelectricity, like the heat, like with the dams, like the dams in the river. And he also developed the medical field. He established a lot of public hospitals as well, which introduced more doctors, that which meant that the country was like had the modern medicine at the time. And he also created Echo 911, which is like the 911 in Ecuador. So Ecuador never had a security system, but during his presidency, he created the first security system, which is Echo 911. And during his time, he has improved just overall life quality, like meat quality, seed quality in rural areas. For example, not only in the city, but in rural areas where not a lot of people had access to. For example, those who live, like, let's say, in the capital, Quito, like people who live in a Sierra region, like, for example, Azogues, they didn't really have as much access as those who lived in the inner cities, the very big cities of the country. He also created a bunch of public schools and universities, and has given scholarships to the best students who had the best grades. And he improved education, and he also given scholarships, so those who got the highest grades can get a scholarship and could study at basically any university in the world. Like, the country would pay for the student to study. And then the plan was basically for him, for the students to go to those countries, for example, the US, or schools in Europe, come back and then use what they study in those countries to help, like, the overall, like, quality of life in the country, in Ecuador. And he's also created the roadway system. So back then, there wasn't as much the country wasn't as interconnected as it is currently, because, for example, only there were only highways that will only revolve around the major cities, like, for example, Cuenca, Quito, some parts of the coastal regions like Guayaquil, Ambato. So only the roadway systems were connected into those cities. Like for example, the rural areas where people live, for example, like in La Sierra, like Cuenca, like some parts in Cuenca and Azogues, there weren't as much roadways there, so those parts were basically like inaccessible. So what Rafael Correa did was he developed the roadway system and interconnected the country entirely. So like now you can go, for example, like you can go from like the most rural area of the country to like the most popular city in the country, which could be Quito or Cuenca. And the highways, they connect from the three regions, which are called La Costa, La Sierra, and El Oriente. So he's connected the country in every region possible that. And for the renewable resources, he has created a hydroelectric power, like I mentioned before, in the rivers, and he interconnected the country with hydroelectric energy. So that meant that not like energy, like electrical energy, wasn't as used much. So that meant like the electric bills in houses actually went down because they used hydroelectric energy, and because it was renewable, that means that it will be cheaper and affordable for people now. And the emergency system was created as the first and only system that has ever been created in the country, which interconnects the system with every part of Ecuador. So, for example, if you had an emergency and you live like in the most rural area, you could call Echo 911, and you would receive help from the emergency systems there. So that wasn't possible before his presidency. So to conclude his presidency, which I think lasted from 2007 to 2017, he in those 10 years he has developed a country which was economically stable, had modern medicine, had the highest education opportunities of education, had overall better quality because he improved the quality in the seeds and plants and in meat. So nobody was hungry. Like everybody had at least a plate to eat. And also developed the security system, which was Echo 911 and the CIES, which is known as the Centro de Inteligencia Estratégicas. That's basically like the CIA of Ecuador. So we'll get into that later. What happens after? So after his presidency, which ended in 2017, so his government was socialistic democratic. So it was like a mix of socialism, but there was democratic policies, obviously. So in 2017, that's where his socialistic democratic government came to an end, and then instead was instilled a neoliberal government. So basically, kind of the opposite of what he has done, neoliberal, because socialistic democratic mostly focuses on the people, like the development of the well-being of the people, and neoliberal is more on like just making money, like any means possible. So obviously that means that anything that he has created, for example, the renewable hydroelectric, all those machines have been left there to like rot and rust and just shut down and become in like have unfunctional. Like you couldn't work with those machines that were just like left there unattended. And basically all of his work from the last three presidents were destroyed, and that meant that because these previous presidents, they haven't invested in anything that Korea has established. So that meant that the country then became economically unstable. There were no opportunities of education, so that meant that only like the rich could get into universities, and didn't allow anybody that actually wanted to pursue education to get the education that they want. And just everything just went downhill after that. And also those three presidents, they disabled the ECHO 911 and the Centro de Inteligencia Estratégica, so like the CIA there, the Central of Intelligence System in Ecuador, which meant that is why there's so much violence, because anything any problem that occurred back then, it will immediately be handled. But these presidents, they disabled these security systems, which allowed so much violence, so much gang violence, homicides, violent deaths, just overall chaos. And because of these presidents, the people it's like desperation. Like times, like when there's desperate times, people start to steal, because there's no money, there's no jobs, there's no opportunities. So people start to steal food. They start to basically fight each other for a plate of food. The Also, like the gangs there over, like they took the opportunity to basically almost take over the country, because the country was in a vulnerable state. And that is the background of why Ecuador is in such a disastrous state right now. There's so much violence. I personally went to Ecuador last summer. The last time I went to Ecuador, which was in 2016, so a year before President Correa's term ended, the country was so safe. I would travel anywhere and I didn't have to worry at all. And I come back on June, the first weekend there. I think like four people got killed in that weekend, and two people got kidnapped in the coastal region. Like the dangerous part of Ecuador right now is the coastal region. That is where there's the most violence. Sometimes Cuenca, but that's like more like very like where it's very popular. That's why in Ecuador right now, like in the cities, it is recommended for tourists, even local people that live there, to not go out past night, because there's just so much violence there, and you can never it's just unpredictable right now. So that is my project for Ecuador, and the history of why Ecuador is in such a vulnerable state, that which allowed these bad people to basically take control of the country.